Wow. So basically today, guys, just wanted to go over some information we've gone over before. We're talking about Father Crespi and his collection because it relates to the book we just read in the last video when we're talking about the Tayo's gold in the cave and all these artifacts that came out of and a lot of other parts in the Amazon ended up in the hands of Father Crespi. That's what we're going to see today. He had stored up in his little museum, which eventually was taken by the Vatican and private collectors. So I hope you enjoy this. Again, this is what's coming out of the Amazon rainforest. Brazil. The Crespi Ancient Artifact Collection of Cuenca, Ecuador. Compiled by Glen M. Chapman, 1998. Father Carlo Crespi, who comes from Milan, has lived in the small town of Cuenca, Ecuador for more than 50 years. He is a priest of the Church of Maria Auxiliadora. Crespi was accepted by the Indians as a real friend. They used to bring him presents from their hiding places. Finally, the father had so many precious objects stored in his house and the church that one day he received permission from the Vatican to open a museum. This museum in the Salesian school at Cuenca grew and grew until in 1960 it was one of the biggest museums in Ecuador, and Crespi was recognized as an archaeological authority. Again, an archaeological authority. But he was always been a rather embarrassing servant of his church, for he asserts vehemently that he can prove that there was a direct connection between the old world, Babylon, and the new world, pre-Inca civilizations. Again, Father Crespi, who lived amongst the Indians in Ecuador, who was collecting all this artifact, archaeological stuff they were giving him, right? Who had evidence and proof because he was seeing it, he was living it, said he had proved that there was a direct connection between the old world Babylon and the new world pre-Inca civilizations. And that goes right against prevailing opinion. On 20th July 1962, there was an act of arson and the father's museum was burnt down. What Father Crespi managed to salvage was housed in two long narrow rooms, which were in a terrible, muddled brass, copper, sheet, metal, zinc, tin, and stone, and wooden objects, and in the midst of them all pure gold, sheet gold, silver, and sheet silver. Eric Van Danken, in his book Gold of the Gods, says, in this treasure, let the Vatican Grail guardian Father Crespi of Cuenca be the key witness to the pre-Christian origin of the metal treasures. He said to me, everything that the Indians brought me from the tunnel dates to before Christ. Most of the symbols and prehistoric representations are older than the flood. Older than the flood. We're talking about antediluvian, right? Ancient times before the flood. Father Crespi has partially stacked his metal plaques by motives. For example, those with pictures of pyramids, antediluvian pyramids in America. I took a close look at more than 40, and some of them are reproduced in this book. All the pyramid engravings have four things in common. A sun, but more frequently several suns, is depicted above the pyramid. Again, a sun above the pyramid. What do we know that as? Snakes are always flying next to or over the pyramid. Snakes, or are we talking about dragons? Flying serpent, Quetzalcoatl? Again, snakes are always flying next to or over the pyramid. Animals of various kinds are always present. He led us into an inner court of the schoolyard, where old Spanish wooden doors faced inward and the off-scrubbed floors gleamed with sunlight, bouncing off the polished terrazzo. We were unprepared for what was to come. Father Crespi took a large key from a ring that hung from a braided belt around his robe, then moved to an obscure wooden door and turned the lock. Together, with a single helper, he disappeared into the dark room. Both soon reappeared with a large piece of metal that had been molded and hammered into a long sheet. It looked like it might be made of gold. The sheet was inscribed with a curious artwork beyond identification. Next, they dragged something from the darkness too large to be carried, and only with strenuous exertions were they able to lean it against the stucco wall. It stands 22 inches high and about 7 inches wide. Its weight must have been prodigious. I reached my hand to touch the object and noticed it featured a dark covering, as if it had been painted. At first I supposed it must have been made of lead because it was soft and almost pliable. Then the nails of my fingers bit into the body of the figure through the paint, and the gleam from the telltale scratch left no doubt that it was made of pure gold. Our cameras began to click, and in the excitement Father Crespi talked excitedly, hardly stopping to breathe. He was our enthusiast instructor, showing us each new piece as though it had just been brought to the light of day for the first time. What other wonders did his black vault contain, we wondered. The old man's nimble fingers joined the ends of two barren electric wires, and the chamber was instantly revealed in the radiance of an incandescent glow. The gleam of gold, silver, and bronze everywhere added to the brightness of its interior. Shelves of dusty, worn ceramics, starry-eyed idols posturing in hideous stances or strange proportions. Stacked from floor to ceiling were hundreds of large cardboard pieces on which were wired metal bracelets, earrings, nose rings, and necklaces, some untarnished by time. Hide scrapers, tools, implements of war, spears, axes, clubs of wood, metal, and stone were stacked everywhere. Father Crespi's mysterious room seemed overburdened with the treasures of an unknown antiquity. It literally overflowed with bizarre artifacts, many wrought in precious metals. Most intriguing were the innumerable plates of bronze, brass, and gold. Many bore strange inscriptions and hieroglyphic symbols. Others were replete with the engravings of incongruous animals, elephants, snakes, jaguars, wild beasts of every kind. Again, elephants in America. The images of horse-drawn chariots were clearly etched into metal, calling to mind Juan Moritz's description of a Roman chariot in his underground chamber. All right? Horses and chariots, Roman in America, and these plates in Ecuador, in the middle of a mountain town in the jungle. We photographed a plate inscribed with representations of what appeared to be Egypt's step pyramid. Still more plates contained artwork with what looked like Assyrian or Babylonian symbols. We grew dizzy with the gleaming opulence and historical anomaly all around us. Aware of Father Crespi's enthusiasm for archaeology, the grateful Indians brought him ancient objects long hidden in the jungle. So these things were hidden in the jungle from ancient times. Soon his collection steadily increased until after 50 years it filled many rooms. A museum was constructed to house these remarkable gifts, but a few years before our visit, it was seriously damaged by an arsonist fire. Father Crespi managed to salvage 3 full rooms of the relics, one of relatively obscure and unimportant tributes, another filled with items of curious antiquity, but the last was a treasury of gold artifacts. Residing high among the Andes Mountains in an obscure village, the old man had no interest in fame or fortune. Few travelers knew of his collection and even fewer scientists. He was a private person with a big heart and a deep interest in the past. Where and how do the Indians find these incredible things? We wondered. Oh, they just get them from the caves and subterranean chambers in the jungles, he answered in an offhand manner. All right, so did you hear that? So these local or modern Indians that were there at this time, bringing Father Crespi, were actually not the ones who made these things. They were finding these things in the caves. These were things left by the aboriginals or ancient people, antediluvian people of Ecuador. All right. There are over 200 kilometers of tunnels starting here in Cuenca. All right, 200 kilometers of tunnels under Cuenca in Ecuador. They run from the mountains down to the eastern lowlands near the Amazon. You hear that? Wayne Hamby, an assistant to Cheeseman, spent a few more days with Father Crespi to catalog and photograph the entire collection. His results went into the field files of Dr. Cheeseman, who died after his retirement from the faculty of Brigham Young University. 2 years following our visit to the kindly priest, I returned to Cuenca with Ben Holbrook, our two young sons, and a pair of Ecuadorian LDS missionaries acting as interpreters. We were greeted by a young priest who informed us that Carlos Crespi had passed away in January 1980, and his collection was no longer available for public view. In spite of many efforts to convince him that we had traveled a long distance to view the relics, he stubbornly refused to allow us to see the treasures. He insisted that the room with the artifacts could not be shown on orders from the Vatican. All right, so the Vatican said, don't show any of these things to anyone else. When Carlos Crespi died, they were like, no, all right, we got to seal this up, you know, don't show it to anybody else. They told the priest that was there, so he didn't let him in, says here. To my knowledge, no one from the outside world has seen the treasure since the death of the old padre. Mr. Barton heard rumors that much of the treasure had been shipped to Rome, to the Vatican, and I wouldn't doubt that at all. All right, so I actually have one of Richard Wingate's books. So let's go to the source directly because they're going to read the exact same thing that's in his book. All right, so now we're in this book. It's called Lost Outpost of Atlantis. Lost Outpost of Atlantis by Richard Wingate. And we're going to read from chapter 1 of this book. It's called Treasure Atlantis in the Andes. All right, so we're going to talk about the same thing we've been reading, right? And it says here, in a dusty, cramped shed on the side porch of the Church of Maria Auxiliadora in Cuenca, Ecuador, lies the most valuable archaeological treasure on Earth. More than $1 million worth of dazzling gold stashed here, and much silver, yet the hard money value of this forgotten hoard is not its principal worth. There are ancient artifacts identified as Assyrian, Egyptian, Chinese, and African, so perfect in workmanship and beauty that any museum director would regard them as first-class acquisitions. Since this treasure is the strangest collection of ancient archaeological objects in existence, its value lies in the historical questions it poses and demands answers to. Yet it is unknown to historians and deliberately neglected in the journals of the orthodox archaeology. I love that man, my companion sighed. The people around here think he is a saint. We were on our way to a storehouse of marbles I had heard described by several witnesses, but never seen for myself. That man was Carlo Crespi, a jungle missionary, a priest of the Maria Auxiliadora Church, an explorer, and the discoverer of extraordinary archaeological treasure. My companion was Cecilia de Egues, a travel agent and translator and one of Father Crespi's many friends. When we arrived at the church, Father Crespi bent, aged figure strode out to meet us with an energy that belied his 86 years. Cecilia, he exclaimed, his eyes widening with pleasure. Where are you going? To bring a little one for me to baptize. Cecilia blushed and introduced us with the formality due her family priest. Crespi shook my hand vigorously. So you're the archaeologist, eh? He asked, a sly smile twinkling his pale blue eyes. Cecilia translated the wry greeting and responded, not an archaeologist, an explorer and photographer, and a man with great respect for your collection. Ah, the priest said. Enough flattery. Then let's take a look without ceremony. He forced a key into an ancient rusty padlock and opened the rickety door to his museum. He attached two bare wires together and a watery yellow light went on. Father Crespi was smiling like a man with a very remarkable secret. I was skeptical of the reports I had heard about this place, but now that cautious attitude gave way to unabashed astonishment. Stacked against the far wall were golden mummy cases in the quasi-Egyptian style with a black baked enamel finish. A dozen complete sets of gleaming golden ceremonial armor, beaten gold Chaldean-style helmets, and golden inscribed plaques were piled haphazardly on the floor. These dazzling memoirs of lost times were scattered among an array of beautifully carved Pacific, Oceanic, and African-style wooden statues, shields of a rich red copper, pottery, canes, sheets, and rolls of silver-colored metal, and strange unidentifiable gears, pipes, and wheels which might have been parts to long-lost technological systems. Rolls of intricately figured sheet metal stood haphazardly piled around the shed. The priest explained that it had been torn of the interior walls of a long, abandoned, vine-choked buildings in the inaccessible eastern jungle. You hear that? So these sheets, these golden sheets, were basically on a wall, on a temple, on a pyramid, and they were. It says here, torn off the interior walls of a long abandoned, vine-choked building. Vine-choked. The jungle had taken it over. Inaccessible eastern jungle. You hear this? This is that Indiana Jones type of stuff. Alright, but this is real facts. The Indian artifact hunters bring this wallpaper. Golden sheets, they call it wallpaper. Walls of gold. Right? This is the real wallpaper, ancient wallpaper, sheets of gold. The Indian artifact hunters bring this wallpaper in three different metals. Gold, a metallurgically unique, untarnished silver, and an unknown alloy with the appearance of shiny aluminum. Every square inch of the peculiar sheet metal is decorated with intricate designs, some of them depicting long forgotten ceremonial occasions, and some of them humorous and cartoon-like occasions. The rolls come in heights that vary for the most part from 8 to 12 feet, and they are often 15 to 30 feet long. You hear that? These rolls are often 15 to 30 feet long. These lengths are composed of many individual 4-foot sheets which have been artfully riveted together. He showed me a dozen bronze plaques. Seemingly, they were among his favorite acquisitions. The illustrations borne by the plaques made me catch my breath. Images of Egyptian princesses and Assyrian gods. Again, images of Egyptian princesses and stared at me with a severity undiminished by the passage of centuries. One of the plaques bore the image of a Caucasian man writing linear script with a quill pen. Linear script? A quill pen? Needless to say, the Andes Indians did not have a written language when the Spanish arrived, let alone a tool for writing. There were reportedly 56 solid gold plaques originally, but after a disastrous arson in 1962, which local political fanatics claimed credit for, Father Crespi had molds made by a local casket maker, and the best dozen of his precious plaques were duplicated in coffin-handled bronze. The original gold plaques lie safe today in a bank vault. Father Crespi granted me permission to take photographs. Since most museums jealously guard their treasures from photographers, the priest's open generosity won me over. Lack of space inside the shed forced me to set up my tripod and camera in the sunlight outer courtyard. The priest himself brought his treasures out for me to record on film. Hours passed and the usual afternoon equatorial winter rain began. The father was growing tired. We quit for the day. I had exposed over 10 rolls of film. taking more than 300 pictures, and covered only a tiny percentage of the 70,000 artifacts. Again, 70,000 artifacts. 70,000 artifacts. These are not savages, all right, which filled the museum's 3 rooms to their ceilings. As it turned out, I made not one but 3 additional visits to Father Crespi in Cuenca, exposed over 3,000 frames, and I still have captured only 2% of the collection on film. Between my second and third trips, the Padres treasure hunters apparently hit upon a fresh cache in the jungle caves. So many new pieces arrived during this period that I was forced to climb over heaps of newly unearthed objects in order to get to certain items that I particularly wanted to photograph. He had to climb over so much artifacts they were bringing. Even when he was there, they were still bringing new artifacts. These Indians from the caves, they knew where they were hidden. They had found them. Food. He has cared for the people, listened to their stories of fabulous deep jungle temples, explored the treasure-filled Tayos caves, and stubbornly provided a museum for the strange artifacts of the country. When Father Crespi and his Indian diggers tell of the places where they find their artifacts, they describe giant pyramids. Again, giant pyramids, immense deserted cities. Talking about in the jungle, the Amazon, fantastic sacred tunnels and caves. The cities, they say, still shine with a mysterious, cool, bluish light when the sun goes down. The tunnels are reportedly large enough to drive a locomotive through. They have cut stone entrances and walls, which by native account are as smooth as glass. Can you imagine all this, right? All this stuff that we don't know is up in the Amazons and these jungles in South America, Central America, North America, all these things that they keep from us that we don't even know, right? That exist. And it is these tunnels, at least according to the Indian explorers, that hold the bulk of the material being offered to the Maria Auxiliadora Museum and to other collectors. It is a fantastic tale, but when one sees the evidence, the thousands of gold treasure trinkets, the story of a vast tunnel system become nearly plausible. Although legend tells of this tunnel network honeycombing all of Ecuador and Peru, the only part of it that has, to my knowledge, been documented is located in the very dangerous Chivaro country, between the Santiago and Morona rivers near Tayos. And this Tayos case, just before I continue, is very, has a lot of drop. You guys got to research that. The Tayos cave. Go ahead and research what's in there. There is megalithic structures in there, like definitely man-made walls there. You got to go into that. Unfortunately, this area is decidedly out of bounds for the foreign adventurer. The local Indians have killed at least 4 inquisitive outsiders in the last 2 years. Yet the tunnels of the Chuara tribes, Jivaro, have been photographed. A naturalized Ecuadorian named Juan Moritz took several rolls of high-quality pictures. Verified in this way, the accounts the natives have been given Crespi, and subsequently lay legal claim to the entire tunnel network. His grandiose claim was denied by the courts, but his photographs cannot be. All right, so we're about to look at some images here. So again, Father Crespi with Wayne Hamby, it says here. Father Crespi with one of his gold artifacts. See the moon. We got Crespi carved gold plate with bearded figures. A Crespi gold plate with hieroglyphic writing. Look at that. Golden helmet and a golden girdle. Various Crespi golden artifacts. A Crespi carved golden sheet with Paul Barton, it says here. Wow, this was on a wall. Right? This was the wallpaper of a temple. Gold. Crespi Middle Eastern stone carved figures with serpent. You see this? This looks Assyrian Babylonian, right? Marduk holding the grain or the corn, right? You saw my corn videos where he's holding in his hand. with the pouch with seeds. Crespi gold plates with hieroglyphic writing and serpent figure. Okay, look at this. Crespi collection with pyramid and Paleo Hebrew writing. Crespi collection with pyramid and Paleo Hebrew writing. Look at that. Paleo Hebrew. Gold Crespi artifact plate with Egyptian hieroglyphics and figures. Alright, you can see all the Egyptian gods and everything, just like in the walls of Egypt temples. Crespi gold plate showing a robed person writing a record with serpent figures. Alright, look at this guy, looks like a priest or Vatican bishop or something. Carved stone, Crespi artifact showing writing and figure of an elephant. Alright. This Crespi gold plate with a written and zodiacal character. A Crespi ceremonial object with elephant and serpent. Elephant. Right here we got this other image right here. You can see. Interesting. Elephant here. Got another figure here, right here to the left. It looks like corn right next to him. That's definitely corn. So this is America. They're depicting something in America. See like a pyramid. See a person on top. See some animals in the bottom. It says here in the bottom, it says showing a Crespi golden plate showing a pyramid with serpents along the sides and sun disk. On top, an elephant, a llama, and toxodon. Supposed to be extinct in America 1,000,000 years ago. A toxodon, depiction of a toxodon, which is supposed to be extinct 1,000,000 years ago, in this gold-plated artifact from Ecuador. The sun in the belly says Crespi gold plate showing a warrior with braided armor and headdress holding a naked child with serpent wrapped around his waist. See that? Says here Crespi strange carved stone showing a dinosaur. Okay, a dinosaur or dragon. Crespi gold wall covering showing strange reptile bird. It says here. It does look a little strange. Look at it. Alright, the right says Crespi human figure with tattoo of strange reptile. Strange reptile, right? We got here a Crespi strange crown showing a bearded man with a crown and a sun disk and woman with clown. Right? Then on the right we have Crespi gold disc with figures of suns, serpents, and a 5-pointed star. And I guess this is from Crete. Over here on the left, a similar maze from Minoan ancient Greek. They're giving you a reference of what they found here in Ecuador. It says Crespi stone tablet with carved maze. So you can see that it's almost the same basically. They're trying to show you. Crespi gold plate showing figure of their god with serpents. Crespi gold plate showing a warrior with armor and weapons with strange braided headdress holding a serpent. Strange braided headdress? Looks Egyptian to me. He got a cross. He got a staff with a cross, and he's holding a snake. Look at this. Crespi gold plate showing a warrior with a braided headdress with sun disk, armor, and serpents. This looks Egyptian. Got the serpent in the forehead and everything. Come on. Where is the true old world? Wake up. Crespi gold plate showing queen with dress decorated with serpents and strange images. Crespi gold plate with hieroglyphic writing. And it says here, a pre-Inca wall showing serpent portrayal. It says Richard Wingate in Lost Outpost of Atlantis offers evidence for the authenticity of the bulk of the Crespi collection. He writes, similar epigraphy in Father Crespi's collection was also labeled as clumsy Indian fraud until better trained scholars discovered some inscriptions were written in classically pure Egyptian hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieratic, Libyan, and South Iberian, and Punic. Again, Richard Wingate, right? He says that everybody thought it were fraud, or that, it could have been, it wasn't, done by people who were trained scholars. But when actually trained scholars did see these plates, right, or these pictures, however they saw them, and they saw the inscriptions on them, they said they were written in classically. It said that means old, classically pure Egyptian hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieratic, Libyan and South Iberian and Punic. All right. Lost Outpost of Atlantis, future book we're going to have. Concerning the large numbers of brass and bronze high pressure air pipes. Such pipes simply can't be purchased in Ecuador today. We were told by importers that we would have to special order pipes of these specifications from Germany, and the cost would be substantial. You hear that? So it says that they found, a lot of brass, bronze, high pressure air pipes, and that this doesn't exist in Ecuador, and you'd have to go get them all the way from Germany, and it would cost a lot. These technological artifacts, of course, don't fetch high prices on the market. Concerning artifacts that are made of pure or alloyed gold, the native gold panners hardly have the leisure or the inclination to fake heavy artifacts of gold and then sell them for less than the bullion value of the precious metal. The heavy mineral crust enamel coating of many artifacts indicates that they were buried under serene volcanic heat. Okay, you hear this? Concerning sophisticated artifacts like the Phoenician calendars, the golden Middle Eastern helmets, the golden armor, and the golden plagues. These would bring hundreds of thousands of dollars and perhaps millions on the private market. To suggest that a sophisticated forger unloaded them on the price for a low price is to deny the greed that motivates forgery. Concerning a cast steel shield, steel casting is beyond the metallurgical capacity of present-day Tayos Indians.
Wow.